So Bitcoin just dumped to $103,000, and Elon Musk came out and said that President Trump would not have won the election if it weren't for him. In today's video, we'll be discussing exactly this, looking at the key support and resistance levels for Bitcoin to help educate you in your trading, and we'll also be going over what's happening between Trump and Elon. If you enjoy the content, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe. Without further ado, let's jump right into the video. So first things first here, in yesterday's video, we talked about how Bitcoin was holding this point of control as support, the highest volume node on the chart. And as we can see, we are now currently below that level, sitting right around $103,300. Now, there were several patterns that we were talking about on the channel that looked very likely to play out. First of all, we had this wedge, which we actually broke down from, highly expected. And we also had this pattern that I was sharing in my Telegram community and on the channel over the past few days, the three falling peaks pattern, and it played out to perfection. We broke down from here, and now you can see this is a very strong candle below this support level. So if we close the daily time frame like this, it is highly likely that Bitcoin will continue lower. Now you can see the fair value gaps on this chart, on the 4-hour chart. But if we take a look at this Bitcoin chart, it really paints a clear picture. We can see that on the 12-hour chart, this is a huge fair value gap, and it would not surprise me if Bitcoin makes its way back into this region. Now this could be a pretty strong support level. If it doesn't hold, however, Bitcoin could be going much lower, as we've been discussing on the channel. Now, what I wanted to show you here is if we go on the weekly chart, we can see the same kind of scenario here. We broke below this key support, and it does look that at some point we're going to find our way back into this fair value gap on the weekly time frame. This brings us between $100,000 all the way down to around $98,000. Now, the reason why this is significant is because if Bitcoin continues to make its way lower to these levels, what do you think will happen to altcoins? I hate to repeat myself, I've been sharing it within my community, but Bitcoin dominance just continues to climb up. And yes, on the weekly time frame, it is a red candle, but we have seen time and time again that over the course of the weekend, this candle can go ahead and turn green. Ultimately, as I've been discussing on the channel since last year, I think that Bitcoin dominance will continue to climb up, and there's no reason to think that this trend will break. Now, of course, we can have some periods of consolidation. We can even come back down and have aggressive movements like this, but ultimately, I think it's inevitable that we will hit that 66% target on Bitcoin dominance. The reason why that's very important, it is not the environment where you want to be speculating on altcoins, and I hope that you've been listening to me on the channel and making sure that most of your spot position aren't in altcoins. Now, if we take a look at ETH, this is a very interesting moment in time. We are right at the bull market support band, and right now we are flirting with this level. If we can break above this level and hold it as support, as I've been saying on the channel, we would likely see more expansive moves for not just Ethereum, but also for altcoins. But until proven otherwise, we should see this as resistance, and it is very significant resistance because we can see time and time again, even when we trickle around this area, we ultimately ended up falling lower, and this has been going on since basically 2022. Now, ultimately, the strength of Ethereum against Bitcoin has been notable in other charts. We could see here, for example, that the momentum is growing, the staked Ethereum continues to climb, and now we're making almost new all-time highs. If we take a look at the Bitcoin spot ETFs and compare it to the Ethereum spot ETFs, it paints the same picture. We had a couple of days of negative hundreds of millions of dollars of outflows for the Bitcoin spot ETFs, and now we're trickling on back. However, Ethereum has been very consistent, nothing but inflows since May 19th. And actually, if I scroll here, let's see how long it's been since we had outflows. The last time that Ethereum had outflows was actually all the way back on May 15th. So we can see the momentum starting to shift here with institutional investors. That being said though, this could very easily turn around if we get rejected at this bull market support band. So pay attention to this. I personally think, as I've been saying, that we will likely form a little bit of a double bottom higher than this previous one where we held support at back in 2019. I know I'm repeating myself, but for the newcomers on the channel, this is my base case. My other base case is also that Bitcoin will likely chop around during the summer, as we saw back in 2024. Here, if I zoom out on the monthly chart for Bitcoin and we take a look at what happened last year, we can see here that Bitcoin formed this range over the course of the summer, wrecking a lot of traders, bouncing from highs, coming a bit lower, making a bit of lower highs, coming a little bit lower, and then ultimately we had that move to the upside. This is a probable scenario, in my opinion, for Bitcoin, forming a very annoying summer range. And honestly, Would it really surprise you at this point? Now on the channel, we also discussed this scenario, which is what happened in 2021. We can see that it's starting to look very, very similar. Bitcoin pumps, comes back down aggressively, and then makes a slightly higher high. It looks almost identical. And there is still some validity to this. However, I do think that it is more likely that we chop around in the summer and Bitcoin puts in a new all-time high somewhere near the end of Q3 into Q4 2025. The reason that this is my base case is because compared to 2021, we now have a lot of liquidity to the upside. And what I mean by this is if we take a look at the liquidation heat map, we can see that over the past 3 days, right now, there is a ton of liquidity to the upside. Now, this doesn't mean that Bitcoin will just immediately pump and turn around from here because I showed you the technicals. If we take a look at this TA, this is blatantly obvious. We're going to go ahead and dump a little bit lower here, and it wouldn't surprise me, as I mentioned earlier in the video, that we tag some of these fair value gaps. However, something interesting is starting to shift in the charts, and that is the Bitcoin exchange liquidation map. Remember when I told you that when the cumulative long liquidation leverage is way higher than the cumulative short liquidation leverage, it's highly likely that we will get some kind of pullback. That is exactly what happened. We got that pullback, and now what do you notice on the chart? That's right, the cumulative short liquidation leverage is now higher than the cumulative long liquidation leverage. That means that if Bitcoin were to go to $117,000, there would be approximately $15.6 billion worth of cumulative short liquidation leverage. However, if Bitcoin were to go to the low 90Ks at this point, there would only be $13.4 billion of cumulative long liquidation leverage. What this means is that we started shaking out some of those longs in the market already. Of course, there's still a ton of liquidity from here up to the 98K region, and it is fully within my expectation that we will liquidate these longs, but I also don't think that the shorts are fully safe. Would it really surprise you if we get an aggressive wick to the upside liquidating these shorts? Because it's extremely rare for all of these shorts to be correct and time the top of the market perfectly, which would have been what happened in 2021. This liquidation map alone, along with the 4-year cycle theory, is what's telling me that this cycle is not over. We will be grabbing some of this liquidity. Perhaps during the summer range that I alluded to earlier, if I can find the chart, perhaps during this range, we go ahead and we tag this wick as we're forming this range during the summer. And of course, if we're able to grab that wick, we would get a massive liquidation event. So right now, what am I doing with trading? Well, with Bitcoin, I've been relatively flat, just holding my spot bag as I normally do. I have not been accumulating altcoins quite yet because I do think that the total crypto market cap, excluding Bitcoin, will be going lower, especially into the summer. And I have been shorting altcoins. Now, if you're part of my community, you know exactly what I'm talking about. We actually recently entered a launch coin short. As you can see, we're in some nice profits, and I do think that this is about to go a little bit lower. Now, if you're watching this video, I wouldn't just jump into this trade because there's a lot of technicals involved here. If you want to know my exact positioning, I would highly recommend that you sign up to my free Telegram group down below. It's the first link in my description down below. And you can see also that late last night, as I was editing my video, I went ahead and entered a cheeky Bitcoin short, and we made $3,500 on that quick short before I went to bed. And if you want to trade with me, you also have the second link in my description down below, which brings you directly to Bluffin. They now have a brand new event. So if you're trading with a lot of volume, you can earn a Rolex, you can also earn AirPods, a Switch, an iPhone 16 Pro Max, a MacBook Pro M3, and the Apple Vision Pro. This is all based on your trading volume. So if you're a big trader, make sure you sign up with the second link in my description down below, because this volume, if you're already generating it on a monthly basis, you would be getting some very nice rewards. I also have Weeks, which is the third link in my description down below. They have a pretty solid bonus as well, up to $30,000 in rewards, and they have that 20% deposit bonus. You can earn up to $400 for free based on what you deposit into your Weeks account, and this goes directly into your futures account that you can trade with. So what's happening between Donald Trump and Elon Musk? Because there seems to be some drama between these two. President Trump says he doesn't know if he'll continue to have a great relationship with Elon Musk. Now, this all started to happen after Elon Musk was starting to transition out of Doge, and what we can see here is that Trump is not speaking that highly of Elon Musk anymore.
He said the most beautiful things about me. And he hasn't said bad about me personally, but I'm sure that'll be next. But I'm very disappointed in Elon. I've helped Elon a lot.
And Elon came back and said, without me, Trump would have lost the election. Dems would control the House and the Republicans would be 51-49 in the Senate. Such ingratitude. So why did Elon come out and criticize Trump? Well, he's been slamming the recent Congress bill, and this is a huge spending bill. I'm sorry, but I just can't stand it anymore. This massive, outrageous, pork-filled congressional spending bill is a disgusting abomination. Shame on those who voted it. You know you did wrong. You know it. The reason why he feels so strongly about this is because this new bill, the big beautiful bill as Trump calls it, goes directly against his initiatives with Doge, trying to reduce the costs and save more money for the American people. And if you didn't know, this new bill increases the debt deficit by $2.5 trillion, completely going against what Elon Musk has been doing at Doge. Now, this is a reasonable reason to be angry with the president, and now they're just going back and forth, so we'll have to see how this develops. Of course, with the president now talking not so positively about Elon, we did see that the Tesla stock price actually dropped 9% today because of this feud between the two of them. And to wrap up this video, let's go over some more news about adoption in this industry. First of all, Chinese firm Weebist files to raise $300 million for XRP treasury plan, and Russia's Moscow Stock Exchange just launched their Bitcoin futures trading. So this is very, very positive. We can see that adoption is continuing in the space. Also, President Trump's executive director of digital assets is meeting with the El Salvador president, Nayib Bukele, to discuss Bitcoin. Could they finally have that strategic Bitcoin reserve where they actually start buying Bitcoins on the market? I'll of course make sure to keep you updated if and when this happens. So overall, Bitcoin is seeing a pretty significant dump, and in my community, we have been shorting not just Bitcoin, but also altcoins and making some nice profits. The price action here was pretty predictable. We broke down from some key levels, now heading into some fair value gaps. I'll make sure to keep you updated how that develops and if we can hold those levels as support, but ultimately, I do think that there is still some more downside for Bitcoin as we go ahead and start chopping into the summer. That being said, I do not think that these shorts are safe, and we will likely see a huge percentage of those shorts getting liquidated. If you enjoy the content, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe, and I'll see you in tomorrow's video.